Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today's topic of discussion is mainly surrounding karma and the lords of karma. And who are these lords? Well, they're right on my shirt. And these may not be specifically the lords. Lords more than likely are like the planets, and these archons kind of manage separate realms, let's say, or kind of like the realm of Jupiter, the realm of Mars. And they're also embodied through these various archetypes, the 12 archetypes, 12 zodiacs. And through these, they manage the karma. But before we get into that, let's get into the idea of romanticizing this concept. And it's not the only concept that many people, especially in the New Age community, have come to romanticize, to really put this, positive spin on. And I'm a victim of this myself. My personality, this player that I've chosen to embody in this lifetime, very much so is in love with that romanticism, right? I've always been kind of a romantic, someone leaning more towards their divine feminine, that was into that type of stuff that just makes you smile on the inside, lovey-dovey and looking for love and things like that. That is until I kind of woke up to certain things, right? Until the veil got uncovered, got removed. And once you see more, something at least closer to the truth, something that at least appears more realistic, it's hard to go back, right? So let me say what I mean. Let me explain what I mean on this idea. So when people romanticize karma, when people romanticize, let's say, chaos, when people romanticize trauma here, they are basically falling in love with the torture, right? And we've seen this through Stockholm Syndrome, where people mistake their government as a loving parent, kind of trying to mend the failed relationships that they may have had early on, right? People fall in love with their terrorizer, their tormentor. And this is a very similar way in which people fall in love with the things we find here, the chaos, the false duality, the inverted matrix, potentially, right? And so this idea is very prevalent that, hey, I'm going to try to see the positive aspect of things because I don't want to take responsibility, and I don't want to potentially make myself aware to the harsh truth, right? So that is kind of like bypassing, kind of like avoiding your emotions in a sense. Or some people just aren't unaware, but this really happens at a subconscious level. You don't realize you're in love with your hostage, you don't realize you're the hostage in love with your kidnapper until you become aware of it, right? So this is what's kind of happening when we say, oh, well, karma is for our benefit. It's meant to teach us lessons. Trauma is for our benefit. It's meant to make us stronger. Chaos, the difficulties that we experience here, the suffering, it's meant to make us stronger. Then, of course, we have, extreme cases such as, sexual slavery, being born into basically torture, born into other forms of slavery, being born into excessive poverty, right? Extreme poverty. And then we wonder, well, what was the lesson there? What did that soul, that divine spark, really need to experience? Oh, no, that was just their karma from a past life because they were really bad. Yet, karma is kind of rooted in trauma, okay? So we're traumatized early on, let's say, from a horrible relationship with our nearest authority figures, which usually are our parents. That trauma then leads us to create negative karma, or essentially what they call karma, which is poor choices, unaligned with our true self, acting out of trauma, which then creates a negative effect for, let's say, our next life, or for, let's say, a being to use against us in the life review to say, well, look, you acted out of turn, you weren't spiritual enough, you didn't learn your lesson, so boom, you have to reincarnate into something similar that you did to that person in another situation. So here we go. One trauma, let's say, was potentially dissolved, although you had acted out and created negative circumstances, negative impacts, consequences for other people. And now all of a sudden, another trauma was created for you to then reenact. And many people actually report through, past life regressions even, experiencing the same trauma over and over and over again, creating the same karma over and over and over again. So what is the lesson there? If we look at it logically, the way we learn is not from suffering, is not from trauma, it's not from being beat on the head. The way we learn is through compassion, through understanding, right? If this place was meant to be a compassionate place, at least how it is now, not from its original state, we would be raised with compassion. And then if we made a conscious choice to act out of ego, to act out of this, some negative inclination, let's say, then that would need some sort of reform, right? Some sort of rehab, some sort of restructuring of the spark of the soul. Something went wrong when Source created you. There was some sort of error. All right, you're not being this compassionate being that we all are here. But no, on the contrary, we're immediately kind of bashed with suffering, and then we're blamed for the fact that we weren't smart enough, we weren't conscious enough to break out of that, right? And to not create this karma. So this is where this romanticism happens, because so many cultures have just accepted this idea that, yeah, just keep coming back and keep doing your thing, keep learning. You have to do good things because that's good karma, and if you do bad things, you're gonna get bad karma. And not many people, the ones that fall into that conditioning, do things out of the sake of simply being a loving being or a wise person, someone that understands things from multiple perspectives, not just from their own selfish ways. And therefore they just do good to get good. It becomes transactional, it becomes contractual. And it's very important to notice that when they gaslight us like that, when we may be kind of guilt tripped into this idea of karma being for our benefit, right? And then we get blamed for not being good enough. We have to understand that is exactly what narcissists do down here on the human level. Really, they're being entity possessed, so that shows how they work in the higher levels of this matrix. Because these narcissists, right, the devil comes as an angel of light, manifesting as an angel of goodness, let's say, with a smile and a charm to deceive you, right? All they really have is gaslighting, deception, manipulation, mental tactics. They try to attack your mind because they can't attack who you truly are. They can't do anything to you without your own accord. So yes, we did at some level agree to come here, but you have to understand that it was a manipulation in some way. It was a deception in some way, potentially, right? It was someone outside of you telling you what's good for you, right? Whereas more than likely, we may have initially just wanted an experience. We might have initially just wanted to partake in something good for us, or something we may enjoy. Whereas a narcissist, what happens down here, how they reel you in, is by giving you what they sense you lack. Usually this is some sort of love, right? So they'll love bomb you, they'll give you attention, they'll give you affection, They'll treat you so nicely, all the while being very much a walking red flag, being, very much codependent on you, and showing you basically this obsessive side to them, where they're pushing and persisting, and it feels like there's a time limit, like there's a time constraint, and it needs to happen very quickly, because there is a time constraint, because they can't maintain that fake energy long enough. Their true self starts to come out, right? So they hide behind this veneer of, this attempt to make your ego feel super liked, and, kind of this people pleaser mentality, right? They basically kiss your butt until you give them what they want, until they reel you in, right? This is very similar to what happens, or to what's accounted for in the near-death experiences, where they will rush you. They'll maybe show you a bunch of nice things, make you feel good, love bomb you, right? Create a very high vibration that you're not necessarily used to, or you don't necessarily remember, and you think, oh, this is source, this is all love, and then they take that away, and then they share something very harsh, or they make you feel guilty. They tell you messed up, right? And then they pull away, and they leave you wanting more, because you got a taste of what it feels like to be in that energy, and it was so beautiful. And you think, well, how do I get back to that? Well, I just need to give them what they want. What do you guys want, right? And they just tell you, well, sign on this dotted line, woof, and then boom, you're back in. You're back in the reincarnation, right? Back in the soul cycle. So really studying and understanding the way these psychopaths work here, down here at the physical level, you can see the tactics that they then employ at the higher levels, so that you can understand that really it's all just a copy paste, like I've been mentioning for a while now, in which they have no other creativity behind their, maybe switching up some tactics now and again, of course, but there's no difference, right? The way they do it remains the same. So then what happens with these archons, these lords of karma, and I shared a video on Twitter yesterday, and it was this woman that had contact with this entity named Isabella. I watched the whole video. The full video was on Leak Project, the channel on YouTube called Leak Project. It's from like 5 years ago, and it's two people, a man and a woman, an older couple. I forgot the exact name, but I'll try and link it in the comments below when I find it. But they're basically talking about how this entity had communicated with them, who I believe to be mainly an agent of this matrix, right? Just like the archangels, just like the spirit guides, just like the demons, right? They're all various forms of the same demiurge, in my opinion, that is running this universal matrix. And they're trying to tell people, like, listen, these are just realms. This is for your benefit. You need to go through this realm and achieve this and do that. But a key point they made, and Rex, the guy that runs the channel, he showed the actual, I believe it was Hindu representation or Buddhist representation of the karmic wheel, and behind it there's a demon eating that. It's feeding off the energy of the soul going through this karmic wheel again and again and again. And you had the animal kingdom and the astral kingdom and the land of the demigods, like we heard of the Greek gods, and they had dramas there. But they said the only real way out was here, in this human realm, in this 3D physical matrix. And then the couple explained how, yes, we have these 7 realms, again, 7 archons, 7 planets, 7 chakras. 7's a big deal, apparently. And at the bottom realm was Earth. Earth being represented by the root chakra. We've heard that hell is red, hell is fiery, right? We heard that hell is below the belly low. It's below the belly. That's where the root chakra is, below the belly, right? And heaven is in the head, H-E-A, head, H-E-A, heaven, right? Representation of the chakras. Now, I personally lean towards the idea that these chakras are some sort of artificial implant, and we have innate energetic centers potentially. But again, the seven colors of the rainbow, Snow White and the seven dwarfs, they're trying to tell us something. And they were saying that the only way out is basically through hell, through the earthly kingdom, right? And we've seen the false tree of light, with Earth being Malkut, I believe is what they call it, at the bottom of the tree, right? The top is missing a Sephirah, in my opinion. The Kabbalistic one has 11. The true one should have 12, if that's even the true, but the Christic one has 12, and that is more symmetrical if you look it up. So if the only way out is through this pit of hell, potentially, this bottomless pit, because at the higher realms, and I've mentioned this in other videos, those beings are literally just extracting energy and using us to survive, to maintain that simulation that they reside in, whether that's good, this good energy, or bad negative energy, right? And they're in some way manipulating this karmic wheel, this astrology, right here, to create fate, to create scripted lives that then create the most energy extraction off of us to facilitate these realms for them. Okay, now this is wild. I know, if you've never heard this sort of information before, it can be extremely triggering, but it's reflected in so many other things that we see in this realm, where we do it to other beings like animals, where it's seen in multiple movies, such as like Rick and Morty, I've talked about, with the simulation within the simulation, where, you know, Rick creates a simulation to power his engine, right? And these things aren't random. These are things that you become aware of. For example, I did when realizing, these light beings that they claim themselves to be archangels, or they claim themselves to be ascended masters, there's something behind that. That's not their true form. And once I realized that, I said, well, hold on, there's a much greater deception happening here. It's not just light versus dark. There's no light and dark, potentially. It's all just one thing, right? One simulation. The archangels being potentially tied to the chakras as well, to the planets, to the archons. And again, I had some people try to romanticize it and say, well, we have the cosine angle and the sine angle, and then we have the archangels, and angels is just angle, and it's sacred geometry, dude. And yes, I know, I've looked into that sort of stuff. The geometry itself, it looks beautiful, but when you study the coding behind it, behind the sacred geometry, behind the golden ratio, behind the Fibonacci sequence, you realize that it's using previous codes to build upon the others, which is exactly what is happening in this matrix. Using other forms of life to build up, to extract from and create something else, something bigger. Even the flower of life, it's using multiple circles, and then it connects this. If you connect the central circular points, you get a cube, you get Metatron's cube, and that creates the simulation. And it's parasitic in nature because it's not fluid, it's not flowing. So, that being said, these lords of karma use this tactic. It's very likely that the idea of cause and effect exists. I've seen it manifest in my own life, right? You do something out of the goodness of your heart, and you see it then reflected towards you. It's kind of like the simulation or the universal consciousness response. It says, oh, that's what you like. We'll show you more of that, right? And then you do something negative, it responds. It's very neutral in the way it responds. It doesn't have a preference, okay? It will magnify what you choose to focus on. But the idea then is taken and kind of, again, romanticized and then manipulated and used against people to then extract their energy, to get them to come back, okay? And with the fact that this karma, this astrology, is being managed by these planets, and then is ultimately ruled by the beings in control of the simulation, you have these scripted lives. Again, I've talked about this in my other videos with your life is scripted, part 1, 2, and 3. You might as well check out those videos if you haven't already. But we have that reflected to us. We have that shown to us, and it's detailed, whether it's in the Bible, whether it's in other texts, somewhat occulted if not. And that's what I want to get into as well, this idea of the Gnostic text that so mysteriously and magically appeared in 1957, I believe. They were, buried and uncovered and all that. And then we have mention of the Divine Mother, Sophia, and then the whole story of creation with the Archon and the Demiurge and all that. I believe, that potentially is more than likely what is closest to the truth. But again, you have to question everything. All of these texts would not be released to humanity, to the common knowledge, to be easily looked up on the internet, if they weren't at first edited, if they weren't at first mingled with, right? Because you have to think, who controls these platforms? Who controls what you see? Everything on the internet more than likely is 100% scrubbed, unless it's some channel that's very small, right? You find some random channel on YouTube that wasn't pushed by the algorithm. The moment a channel or some social media platform starts pushing upwards of 100,000, 1,000,000 followers or views, then you know it's being pushed by the algorithm. You know there's something else happening that they want you to see. That's why near-death experiences are so pushed now. They're so much in people's faces because they've gotten a handle on the propaganda behind it, right? The entities have kind of used that as a plot, as a sort of way to get it to their advantage. Very similar to the idea of the Matrix, right? They've taken that and they're using that to their advantage with all this news surrounding Tate and things like that. Oh, you're in the Matrix, and the way to get out of the Matrix is just make more money. And well, no, I've said this on Twitter, but it's like literally like Cypher being a marketing tool for the Matrix, right? Cypher chose to go back in the Matrix, and then now he's going to tell people how to get out of the Matrix? Because why? He fell in love with it. He's just going to tell people what to do to stay in the Matrix. That's why they're using him, right? He's under their control. He's not going to be able to act out of their control. So, the idea of Sophia being the Divine Mother is potentially very true, but comparing it to the Bible, where we have, only the Heavenly Father exists. Well, now the Gnostics are saying, only potentially the Divine Mother exists. I do believe they mention the pleroma, or the higher source, as well. But if we just take only what we want to see and say, it's only the Divine Mother, it's only the Divine Father, again, that's polarity and duality acting against each other and separating rather than unifying things and creating a whole idea. So I do believe the Gnostic texts were still influenced, unless you literally discover something in your own backyard, you find something completely unedited and see it for yourself. It's hard to say that something wasn't messed with, right? Hard to say. Especially something like the Bible. I mean, the Bible, we have people that, may dislike the Masons or dislike these secret societies. And it says, well, look, in the Bible it says you guys are of the devil, or something like that. Something extreme of that nature. And then the Bible is literally written and edited by King James, the top Mason, or the Catholic Church, the ones responsible for, all these secret societies and all the wars, basically. So that's just something to think about in regards to the text and the information we find on the internet. One other point I wanted to mention about karma that I forgot is that being that we came in here, let's say, right, we would have to have come in here with no karma, with no trauma. Either that, or if this was a place of, let's say, learning, we would have to have started at point 0 and then worked our way up, let's say, making mistakes, accumulating karma, to then in a sense make sense of these traumas, of these karmas. So how can we say that we came in here at point 0? It's something heavily promoted by the law of one, and that we didn't know anything. We were kind of born here. We started out, let's say, as a rock, and we evolved from rock to tree to human to then higher and higher and higher and higher, going through all these karmas and traumas and whatnot. That information, again, was given to us by this being, this entity named Ra, who I've already kind of went into on how it's a parasitic entity. And it's using this information to facilitate the reincarnation trap, right? To say, you got more lessons, you got to go back, you want to go higher and higher and higher, right? That would imply that there's a hierarchy of, less advanced to higher advanced, kind of like we see in a video game, right? You enter the video game, you start at level 0, you go fight, you go train, you blah blah blah, you raise your character's level, you're level 99, but that level never stops. It's like you keep going and going and going and going. It's still in the video game, unless the video game has a cap, and then it just says, oh, go do whatever you want or whatever, it's your choice. And this idea of free will exists within the video game as well. This video is getting really long, but I'm going to try and cut it short right here. So that doesn't make any sense, because at the soul level, we're all equal. We're all coming from the same source. And, I was talking to someone on the channel, well, there's no time, can't really be defined on the, level of the soul. Experience, I guess, would have more of an impact on the soul. Let's say if a soul was newly created, experiences. But even then, when you're born out of something that's all-knowing or all-encompassing, you are also going to be all-encompassing. And my imagination, at least, feel free to challenge that. So that in my opinion does not make sense. What more would make sense is that we came in here pure and we got degraded, right? And we have this idea of us being in a higher state and falling, right? We have the notion of Atlantis, we have the notion of Lemuria, how we were in higher states, and then all of a sudden either we got hijacked or we got implanted or something may have happened. The simulation went astray, and now we've degraded, we've fallen from our true form. And then karma was introduced, let's say, or more manipulated, and then our lives started becoming faded rather than an endless point of creation. So that's where I'll leave it off. Let me know what you thought in the comments. This is hard stuff to discuss. It's not gonna be something that just makes you feel good all the time. So it's okay to have questions, to challenge it. It's okay. That's why it's a discussion. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Give it a like, subscribe, and be on the lookout for new videos. Take care. Next time.